Hi, welcome back to Kely Reads. If you're new here, these are raw, unedited, unengineered, one-take reads, good or bad, lots of screw-ups, gasping breath, but a really cool story that I think can survive my efforts. If you're a beginner or you're new to all this, we have no other way to judge ourselves except against AI perfect and the accomplished, talented pros that we aspire to. And, sometimes it's a lot of work, and sometimes it can be very discouraging. And we don't have engineers, we don't have directors, we don't have probably the best microphones, the best amplifiers and channel strips and software, and we're not really experienced in using them. But what we can capitalize on as beginners is our real commitment to the material. You see it all the time. One example is on the talent shows where you see somebody sing a song and it just blows us away. Normally a cover, sometimes an original. And then later, people want to remake it and try to capture that magic that was encapsulated and expressed through the humanity of the moment, the flaws and the quirks and the emotion. And that's, as an amateur, without deadlines and obligations and expectations, we get to capitalize on that. And if we ignore it, then we're really ignoring maybe the only real advantage that we have. So it doesn't mean that we get to be lazy. We still have to push and try to make ourselves better. And of course, we want good material. And, but it only works if we really go all out. And anyway, these videos and my reads are my way of holding myself accountable and also sharing part of the process. And hopefully it's inspiring a little bit. Like I said, I think the story will hold up even with my amateur attempts at bringing the story to life. And so, feel free to comment. I'd love if you asked questions and shared your own work. And of course, I'd love you to subscribe and, like the video. That would mean a lot and help other people to find it and keep, it's the pat on the back that keeps me going as well. Anyway, on to chapter 8. Chapter 8. Nash stood frozen, mouth upturned, willed the final drop to fall. It took long enough. He felt the earth turn beneath his feet, watched clouds against the black sky race overhead with the promise of rain. Seconds later, head raised as if frozen there. The lights at the edges of his vision expanded, danced in blues and reds and golds and colors he'd never seen before, but could now somehow smell and hear, while balls of green and purple fire streaked at him from all directions, as if he were the center of the universe imploding. He struggled to stay on his feet, watched the sky shift and twirl, as elastic and malleable as the breath he watched condense against the hot night. Days passed, or years, or just moments, but long enough to forget why he was staring into the heavens. He heard laughter and shouting and voices, a dozen languages from across the world, and for the briefest of moments, he understood them all. And then he was back, standing in a dark alley with a gnawing of hunger like a desperate animal clawing its way out. He stumbled toward the streets, drawn by the strange quality of sound, intensified as if broken apart into its individual harmonics, yet echoing in his head, the reverberations distant and mellow, as intoxicating as if he had been deaf, but could now hear for the first time. A car roared by. He heard individual cylinders ticker, the vibration of the engine mounts against the frame, the grains of beach sand beneath the rubber tires. He looked up from the street to 5 people crammed inside an open top convertible, shouting and laughing into the night. He staggered back against the concrete walls and stared. A young girl and guy, maybe spring breakers, were crammed in with 3 monsters, faces misshapen and hideous under the glare of the beach's neon lights, fists pumping with inhuman claws and roaring into the night. Nash laughed and shook his head to clear the vision. Maybe a costume party or a holiday he'd forgotten. It had caught him by surprise. Another car went by. Normal enough. And then another. More monsters, as horrible as the first. He needed to get away, needed to let his head clear. The masks were so fucking real. Fell against the wall as a couple holding hands turned the corner. They sidestepped around him as if he was shit on the sidewalk, and glared. Both had fangs revealed against wet lips the color of gray worms, doll-like eyes melted onto their cheeks, and curved horns thrust from their skulls. His head swam. Oh, fuck that. He was tossed and tumbled as if a riptide dragged him across the ocean floor. From across the wide gulf of cement, Nakamura bowed to his audience, picked up the briefcase, and flanked by his samurai, walked back to his car. Ruiz was halfway out the door, bringing his submachine gun up to spray the bastards before Acosta pulled him back. Leave 'em. He watched the rest of the men swarm out from beneath the cargo containers. Shots rang out, and 2 samurai dove, rolled and charged, crossed 30 of the 50 yards in a flash. Both were cut down by a hail of bullets as Nakamura, never looking back, got in his car. An instant later, one of the gangsters went down with 2 inches of steel throwing star buried in his skull. Flashes of gunfire lit the night from every direction, but stopped as abruptly as they'd begun, the after-images lingering in the dark like fireworks. Shadows melted into the ink as the account's limousine backed away, flashed its lights twice as if to wave goodbye. Ruiz looked to the boss for an explanation. Acosta ignored him, pulled out a small handheld screen. A green light, a 1/4-inch square of bright pixels, lit his face. He watched it move across the screen in time with Nakamura's limousine. Now your lessons begin. Angel leaned in close, stared at the screen. Blip, 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 giddy with the thoughts of what was to come. He ran from the streets toward the beach, the roaring waves and black horizon, a refuge from monsters that had overtaken the city. Forced himself to laugh, so as not to scream. He knew they weren't real. Couldn't be. His feet carried him as fast as he had ever run, not even sure they touched the ground. Maybe he was flying. The wind whipped his hair and pushed tears that fell from his eyes across his cheeks. He fell in the wet sand, just feet from the surf. The spray of water from the crashing waves blasted him like a fire hose. And then it started to rain. Each drop slammed against him with the force of a fist, pounded him against the earth. Then the beach itself wrapped around him, quicksand pulling him under with its near-infinite embrace. He fought and screamed and fought his way onto his back. Lightning danced along the horizon and thunder crashed, the sound as deafening as the voices and laughter half a mile away along the South Beach avenues. Bruised purple clouds raced beneath black skies. The storm would come soon in earnest and tear his flesh apart. Part of him ready to let it happen, but a voice in his head, Maybe his father with his long leather belt, the cracks against flesh still echoing from 20 years ago, told him to get up. There were more chores to be done. He made it to his feet, lashed out at the memory, and stood panting in the rain. He needed shelter and time. He set his sights on the distant warehouses, miles of vast steel structures where a man could get lost or find himself. So a few screw-ups, which, at this stage I've learned to expect, and that's okay. Every once in a while I stumble over a word, or you start second-guessing yourself, and it throws you off. And, a released version of the audiobook would be edited and polished and mastered. The only thing I'm doing on this is adjusting the volume so YouTube doesn't freak out too much. And depending on how you're listening with headphones or just on your phone or, across a stereo, which hopefully it sounds pretty good. So it's not too radical and, nobody hurts themselves listening to the audio. Anyway, welcome back. And if this is your first time, please feel free to watch some of the other videos. And before it's over, there'll be 100 chapters and a full book up. And there's chapter links. You can jump ahead and skip my talk before and after and just enjoy the story. And on to chapter 9, Super Ninja. Thanks.